Hello, and welcome to Fresh Takes on Tech. We're really excited to have this season that we're dedicating to regenerative agriculture. And so we're looking at regen ag and then specifically how a USDA program called AMP, which stands for Advancing Markets for Producers, is focused on solving this core problem. So we're looking at how do we connect climate smart agriculture to real market value for growers. Historically, growers have been asked to adopt new practices, but the market has not consistently paid for them. AMP is designed to test different ways to fix that by bringing together growers, buyers, and supply chain partners. There's no single approach to this program. It's a set of real world experiments across the industry to see what actually works. Last week on the program, I interviewed Tamara, the Vice President of Sustainability from the International Fresh Produce Association, and we talked about what IFPA is doing around this program. And today, I'm really lucky to have Peter Wells from Elevated Foods to talk about their program and their view on AMP. So, Peter, really great to have you here again, as always.
Yeah, thank you, Vonnie. Happy to check back in with you today and report on the updates in the program.
Great. So, why don't you start? Just introduce yourself and Elevated Foods a little bit, so people kind of know, where you're coming from and your background.
Sure, thanks. So, Peter Wells, I'm our Chief Strategy Officer at Elevated Foods. We are a fresh produce brand. We were founded back in 2021, really to address many of the challenges we saw across the industry around the adoption of sustainable practices, technology, and opening up and expanding new markets for growers. And really that thesis we had when we founded the company in 2021, really led to this opportunity of the AMP program. And there's a lot of really interesting overlaps between the goals of this program and the foundation that we laid when starting the company.
One would think that it's actually good policy, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're happy to tout the brilliance of the policy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good. So let's jump into the problem that you're trying to solve. From your perspective, what is the core problem AMP is trying to address? Where has the system broken down historically for growers in trying to get value from climate smart practices?
Great question. This is one of the core challenges we're trying to solve, is how investing in conservation, and really the climate smart practices are at the core are conservation practices as that have been long established by NRCS at USDA. And it's, translating the investment and, land stewardship principles that NRCS has always promoted and turning that into market opportunities and differentiation for the growers who are going the extra mile to invest in healthy soils or adopting new innovative methods on their farm aimed at resource conservation or ultimately you know growing more for less. And when we really think about it in that construct, every you know no grower wants to use more water than they want to than they
Right.
need to. They don't want to use more fertilizer. So there's also a really compelling case on the grower's behalf to be more efficient and maximize the effectiveness of the resources and inputs that we utilize in growing uh, fresh produce and other specialty crops. And that hasn't always translated to new markets and or premiums. And really, that's what this program is aiming to establish.
So, what's your approach? How would you describe what Elevated Foods is building in simple terms? And it seems you're focusing on aggregation. And what does that unlock that individual growers cannot do alone?
An area of the market that we've seen and we think is overlooked and underserved is sort of the middle of the supply chain and the growers who want to invest in conservation agriculture practices. The at the aggregation point, maybe that is not a priority or a strategy. And so, some of the large, multinationals have, company-wide directives or initiatives around sustainability. And really the mid-tier and the predominant in quantity of number of growers in the mid-tier of the supply chain, are shipping through many different aggregation points. And, there isn't often the same cohesive strategy around brand marketing, sustainability, and how that is communicated to the end consumer in that part of the supply chain.
So what are you trying to do there? What's your
Yeah.
approach of who you're working
So,
with?
yes. So our long term vision is aggregating across many commodities, but there's a few a complete portfolio of fresh fruits and vegetables. We're starting with citrus and a few other products that have really, as we've built out the program, built out our grower network, we've developed geographic and commodity clusters that, we're starting to build our commercial programs around. And what we have seen is the mid tier of the supply chain. There are a lot of growers who want to invest, but maybe they're not getting the recognition by the marketing company or shipper for the efforts they're putting into conservation. That aggregation is really, for us, is pulling together all these growers with common values and vision around how they want to grow their crops, manage their land, and communicate that to the market, and utilizing that as our differentiation.
You'll be communicating all these benefits through the aggregators, and then do consumers, retailers, and consumers see that, or how does that move through and get it acknowledged and appreciated?
Yes. Yes. Great question. Yeah. So we are developing our new commercial supply chains through our company, Elevated Foods. We are tapping into, one of the goals of the AMP program was to open up direct to consumer markets for growers. So the way we're doing that is through the grower cohorts in our program, bringing into a variety of commodities into a single aggregation or packing point and shipping directly to consumer. We're doing that. We just recently launched on Walmart Marketplace, a direct
Oh,
to consumer
great.
offering, and are expanding into a number of other direct to consumer online channels. And that was one of the goals of the new market opportunities outlined under the AMP program.
So if
We
I
also are and then we also are developing more traditional, wholesale programs, uh, and have a number of programs in development with regional retailers, along the West Coast.
So is the program promoted, or the value promoted on packaging, or like at retail? Would there be a sign or a logo? Or as a consumer, how would I know that I was getting something that you had worked on?
We're really approaching this from really a angle of really a CPG brand, and have communication tools and programs that have developed thus far, and are continuing to expand upon, that are focused on the retail and food service buyers directly, but also reaching the consumer through, one of the things we see is the storytelling of the growers, the names and faces behind our food system. It's something that really resonates, and we think that really drives a lot more attention and awareness than, like, some of the data and sort of less personal attributes that are often communicated around sustainability. Also, the element of local food really comes
Uh-huh.
into play here as well. And the programs we are building are all local and regionally focused. And that is a message that does really resonate with retailers. And it's something that everybody, I think, conceptually at the consumer level understands, that you'd rather buy something that's grown in your backyard or near you than something that was shipped from halfway across the country or potentially the world.
Yeah, exactly. So that's talk a little bit more about what, if I'm a grower in your program, what actually changes if I'm participating? Do I get more money? Are my profit margins higher, or do I get more market share? Like what actually changes?
Yeah, as part of the grant program, we do provide uh, practice adoption incentives. There is also, which are payments for implementing, the conservation practices. They also are participating in a marketing and communication programs that we're leading for under the goals of, AMP and opening up new markets. Our element of our program there is to build communication programs for the grower. So, first, for them to tell their own stories on their own social media channels, if they may have them. Also, aggregating those stories across our whole portfolio and sharing those on elevated social channels and a wide variety of those. We also have print collateral, are utilizing that in our communication with retail buyers, and through our direct to consumer channels. And so we're really leaning in on telling the stories, from the field of how our food is grown and how it makes it to your plate. And we do see a lot of consumer interest and the fascinating parts of agriculture that many people just don't understand or have never been made aware.
Are your growers mostly in California or in Western states, or where are they?
Predominance in California. We had total of about 10 states under our program, but the majority are in the West.
So what are you seeing from the buyer side? Are people excited about the program and contacting you, or are you having to go to them and sell to them, and kind of how's that market reality happening?
There is a very clear, um, interest in local food, that we see from the buying community. And that paired with, the climate smart conservation aspects of the program, has been a differentiation point for us in our buyer conversations. And we are seeing great interest in sort of co-building these marketing and point of purchase programs. And all the retailers, they're looking for ways to differentiate themselves in the market and from the many other stores or options where people can shop. I think we all know in the industry, fresh has always been an area of the store where people can differentiate.
Mhm.
And so we are seeing a lot of interest in sort of co-building programs where the retailers really want to lean in and highlight that they know the growers they are sourcing from. And this is the care that they've put into growing your food, uh, conserving and being good stewards of their land. And in the end, that's bringing, a healthier, more nutrient dense product to your table.
So obviously, there's a lot of data that has to be gathered and that is gathered through this whole process. What data actually matters to make this work, and who owns the data, and how is it used?
With the changes in the program of the last year, a lot of the data and info collecting requirements have been waived, particularly
Oh,
around
really? I didn't know that.
carbon and greenhouse gas emissions, which was sort of a core part of the Climate Smart program, de emphasized under AMP. Some of the data collection requirements have disappeared entirely.
That makes it
A
a little
new,
easier, right?
yeah, which for administratively has made the program implementation less administrative heavy.
Yeah,
Um,
I bet. Mm.
One area, though, we have added new data collection was through a partnership with a company that does nutrient density testing. We've seen them a lot in the market and are getting a lot of traction with brands who are looking for a way to differentiate their product. We have heard some retailers are also looking into this, but the concept in general is to do lab testing and nutrition analysis of products when it comes out of the field. If you survey and test product from all across the country, what you find is there's great disparity in the nutrient density and quality of one carrot grown in a certain environment versus another. And enough that under certain commodities, that I'm using carrots as an example, there may be one carrot may have the same nutrient content of 8 carrots grown in under a different set of conditions or environments. And so, when you think about delivering healthy, fresh food to people that is going to nourish them, this is an area where we're uh, doing more data collection and going to use this as part of our key marketing messaging. Interestingly enough, one of the big factors in nutrient density over time is that the fresher product is, the higher content, nutrient content it has. And as it is transported potentially across the country and sits in our fridge for a week, there may be a 50% degradation in nutrient content over that time. And so, in addition to the connection to the growing environment, investing in healthy soils, really this freshness, speed to market, local concept really plays into the nutrient density conversation as well.
So are you testing? That was going to be my next question. Are you testing at, once it gets to retail, what's happening at that point? Because I'm sure there's some variability. If you have a healthier, if you harvest a healthierly grown product, it should transport better. I mean, it takes everyone some time to get to market, but if it's locally grown and, it from the time it's picked to the time it's in the store shelf is under a week, how how does that look as compared to something that's not grown under this program?
As you said, something that a healthier product picked in the field also has a longer shelf life.
Yeah.
So the effect compounds um, over time, where I believe that the data shows that the healthier product retains its nutrients even longer.
Yeah.
So there really is the disparity grows over time. Um,
That is so cool.
and
I hadn't heard that as part of your program, and I love that because it's always
Well,
the
this is new. We
question.
just, that's why we're doing the update. We just signed
Yeah.
this partnership in January. We've been looking at this concept for years now, and just really have the tools and kind of the
Right.
market.
Yeah.
Market hasn't really been there, and we do think it is a important part of the conversation.
Very much so. Yeah. And that, at some point we should be able to get a premium for that because people want higher nutrition, but just getting
Well,
people.
we think yes, and so great segue, because we do think that people will pay a premium for a higher quality, nutrient dense product versus like paying for a carbon footprint. I think it's just from the consumer standpoint, like there's a direct one-to-one relation there. And, we've seen kind of out of sight, out of mind, you know, from the consumer standpoint about around the willingness to pay for climate attributes at times. But we do think the nutrient density piece connects conservation to quality, and then into something that people will pay for.
Yeah. And it makes sense to people, when I talk to consumers and just people, my neighbors, I mean, it makes sense to them that if you're growing in a more healthy way, it's going to be better for the environment, which is to them secondary, but it's going to be, a healthier product for use. So that's great. I love that. That's a thing I'd like to see. I mean, I can remember a couple of years ago, people asking me that question, and there was just nobody was testing for it, And so you say, yeah, well, theoretically it makes sense, and there's probably been some academic surveys on this, but I didn't have a way to say no. It definitely is higher nutrition. So in the program overall, what's working and what's not, I would definitely say this is a piece that's working and people are excited about. But what kind of has surprised you since starting the work, and what's going well, and what are you still struggling with?
I'll start with what's been going well. Widespread interest from the grower community, and without exception, I think there is a lot of interest from hers, even if they maybe didn't have a sustainability program in place. The opportunity to participate, use as a lab to learn on how they can do better, and get access to tools and resources and technical support has been really, there's been universal interest, in that level of the program participation. There's always interest, from the grower shipper community on accessing new markets. And, the way we are really approaching that is as being additive or supporting to any additional or existing sales channels they may have, really utilizing our footprint in our sales and marketing efforts to uh, just create additional demand for their product. It's a different voice, different buying conversation that we're having that we believe is going to be additive for any individual grower as part of our program. And, we do, as part of that, we do a commercialization, what we call a commercialization interview to understand, what avenues, where's their product going, where do they need support, and then on our side have really a matching filter to then identify like where we can plug them into our existing programs.
Have there been particular barriers? Has it been hard to sign up growers or, it sounds like retailers are leaning in. Is there, besides the fact that the program was paused, but that was a problem for all of us, but,
Yeah.
any particular barriers that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely have been barriers. I mean, initially, just getting the program off the ground and understanding all the rules, parameters, ways that, time and place for data collection on our side. Um, uh, that we learned a lot in the first couple of years, and we did have a chance with the pause last year to kind of reassess and streamline some of our systems where,
Oh, that's good.
we had been head down, just focused on implementation for 2 years. Like the pause really was helpful for us to reevaluate where we were, what our priorities were, and maybe where we were missing the mark. One of the challenges, you know, and this was removed with the transition to AMP, really was in the data collection and
Yeah.
specifically, um, it's super technical, but we were collecting the greenhouse gas data under the Comet Planner, which was standardized across the whole
Mhm.
program, and then we we had the requirement to collect under one additional framework, and the combination of those two different frameworks, the level of data collection that was required from the growers was really a challenge, and
Mm.
many of them struggled to get the information back to us in a timely manner. We sort of, in our annual closeout and renewal process as part of continuation in the program, we were running into a lot of challenges, and um, those have been lifted under the new program. So, like administratively, it has been streamlined a lot from that perspective, and with that in place, sort of being re-engaged in the pillars of and goals and objectives of the AMP program, we're really focused really this year and through the end of the program in 2028 on building out the commercial supply relationships to support the growers under the program.
Great. As we close up as part of that, so if this works, what looks different for growers in 5 years, and what looks different for buyers and retailers in 5 years? The program, if you said it was successful.
We're focused on elevating the grower as really the superheroes of our food system and telling that story. And, it really is, from by and large, the agriculture community, incredible work to feed all of us every single day, despite all the, obstacles of Mother Nature and certifications and every requirement it takes to get product to market. And we're really looking to establish and build that relationship between the consumer and the grower directly through our marketing, our storytelling, the differentiation of the product through the sustainability attributes, the nutrient density and quality of the product that they're growing, and telling that market, or telling that story to both the consumer and the wholesale buyer.
Well, Peter, thank you again for your time. And we really appreciate the collaboration that we've had with you at IFPA and things like the regen tour that we did at the global show last year. We love that collaboration and love to see you be successful in working with growers. So thanks a lot for that.
Well, thank you. And we really value IFPA as a great partner of ours for a long time. And it's great to
Great.
have the opportunity to share with you today.